Do you have any idea how hard it is to be completely honest with somebody? If you're thinking no right now, you've either ascended past us mere mortals, or you need to check your pulse. So many great stories latch on to a vulnerable aspect of humanity and use it to guide their narrative. But before I gave it a watch to see for myself, I was unsure if Violet Evergarden walked among them. My brother saw it before me, and he told me it was mediocre and didn't live up to its reputation. A lot of my friends who saw it either said, yeah, it's pretty good, or they foamed at the mouth for it. Then my boy Hideo Kojima weighed in and said that was sick. I can't believe I've never seen this before. Being pulled in so many different directions, I was forced to actually watch it for myself and form my own opinions. Ugh, gross. Can you imagine in 2022? And spoiler alert, I loved it. That isn't going to be the only spoiler in this video, by the way, so proceed with caution. I recommend checking it out before you watch this, because Violet Evergarden is one of the finest pieces of entertainment I've ever experienced. Trust me, even if you weren't into this show before, I'll at least try to get you to appreciate something about it before this is over. And in order to build that trust, I'm going to admit that my first point is something that I completely forgot to mention while planning out this script. Maybe I left it out because I talk about it in every Kyoto animation video I've ever made, but it bears repeating for this one. This show is gorgeous. The colors, the lighting, the movements, the character designs, everything on display is KyoAni at their absolute best. You probably already know this though, especially since the clips I'm showing on screen are currently having sex with your eyes, so let's talk about how these visuals aid the narrative. As we'll come to understand, Violet Evergarden is a show about emotions, specifically hidden ones that the characters desperately want to express but for one reason or another can't. Because of this, it also puts a lot of stock into its characters and effectively builds each one up so you can come to a deep understanding of who they are as people. Violet, for example, is very robotic, subservient, and blunt when we first meet her. Her movements are stiff and calculated. She never seems to expend any unnecessary energy. There's this great detail in the first episode where she sits quietly at the dinner table until she's told to eat. She reveals just how broken her sense of reality has become thanks to living her entire life on a battlefield by referring to a typewriter as a weapon. This idea is reinforced by her caretaker, Claudia Hodgins, when he gives her a completely dumbfounded reaction upon hearing the reason behind her desire to become an auto memory doll. By the way, for those who haven't seen the show, auto memory dolls are people who take requests to write letters for others, as this takes place during a time when very few people knew how to write. Violet strives to become one of them, and I'm talking a little bit too much about her, aren't I? Sorry, I can't help it. You see, a show called Violet Evergarden kind of revolves around Violet Evergarden. This isn't like Clannad or Hibike where multiple characters go through arcs. This is Violet's world and these guys are just living in it. Not to say that these characters are totally sidelined though, not even close. We still learn so much about them even if their screen time pales in comparison to the side characters of other shows. Claudia is kind, accepting, and relaxed. He's running a postal company he dreamed of founding before the war ended, and he struggles to take over as Violet's surrogate father because of her robotic behavior and the fact that her dark past will inevitably catch up to her. Benedict Blue is a postman for Claudia's company who goes way back with him. He's brash and uncouth, and he never seems to find the right words when he's put on the spot, but the guy has a strong sense of responsibility that makes him reliable in a pinch. Erica dreams of writing text that can resonate deeply with people, but her low self-confidence can stay her feet from time to time. She's very supportive of her friends, even if she's jealous of their abilities. Iris aspires to become Leiden's most popular auto memory doll, a goal her co-workers view as unrealistic. Her impulsive and insensitive actions place her in the shadow of her much more delicate associates. Dietfried? Diet Fried? Again with these names. Dietfried is a gentle man hiding behind walls of suffering and cynicism. He's very cruel and cold towards anyone who he deems as worthy of scorn. He spends his days continuing his military service even after the war has ended, coming to grips with the demise of his brother and the redemption of his most hated colleague. I think you get the picture. I like all of them too. They may not have arcs, but they're characters through and through. Without developments of their own, their narrative narrative roles are shifted into helping hands for our main character's arc. It's exactly what I talked about in the silent voice video. If you saw that, then you know that if a character helps out another one through their arc while remaining fun to watch, I'm a happy camper. Not every character ever written has to go through huge sweeping changes to be a worthy inclusion to a story, and this cast is a perfect example of why. And with that, you all can go back to your seats on the bench. It's Violet's turn again, and I hear that she's looking to run out the clock. I absolutely adore this character, maybe not as much as I adore my patrons, but we'll talk about being a sellout later. She's a former soldier at the ripe old age of 14. She spent her days murdering Dietfried's men on a boat until he kidnapped her and pawned her off on his little brother Gilbert, instructing him to use her exclusively as a tool for warfare. Gilbert said, "What the fuck? No," and did his best to raise Violet. He still sent her into battle because the higher-ups demanded it though. Violet struggles to perceive emotions and can live only through Gilbert's orders, completely subservient and dependent, much to Gilbert's chagrin. Once he bites the dust and leaves Violet in the care of Claudia though, she embarks on a quest to learn the meaning of the phrase "I love you," as it was the last thing Gilbert said to her. And oh, sorry about that, I must have just been reading the wrong script. I mean, a soldier who was used as a tool by their country, motivated solely by orders, learning to live for themselves while being haunted by the sins of their past? Maybe there's just a part of my brain that likes to link everything I see to Metal Gear Solid. I'm sure that they wouldn't just... Huh. No wonder Kojima liked this show so much. In all seriousness, Violet's journey through this story is nothing short of phenomenal. When I started my rewatch for this video, I was dumbfounded by just how differently the Violet in episode 1 behaves compared to the one that we see at the end of the series. She goes from shooting blank, emotionless stares, breaking down every word spoken to her into the most literal interpretation possible, and firing back words so blunt I wouldn't mind spending dozens of hours farming parts to craft them, to being able to experience a wide range of emotions with or without others, deciphering the nuances and hidden messages behind every word that's said to her in order to come to a complete understanding of what another person is feeling at any given time, and employing empathy to comfort and relate to people who are going through a tough time. And on top of going through such a drastic transformation, she is just so much fun to watch. I love these stiff, robotic characters that know seemingly everything yet have zero street smarts. Take episode 2 where she watches her co-workers write letters for customers. This one dude who's in the hole writes a letter to his loaner saying that he can pay back 2 chlore a month, which I'm guessing is this world's fictional currency. And then Violet responds with, "At that rate, you'll pay your debt back in 120 years. Are you sure you're gonna live that long?" This one lady comes in crying because she's worried about her son's behavior, and then Violet says, "You're stalling our work, stop crying immediately." Claudia then sits her down and says he's received quite a few complaints from people, and Violet is just like, whatever for. This is comedy gold, and even though it diminishes as the show goes on, it's just another indicator of how much she grows. It's such a big change that, in many respects, she becomes her own polar opposite. The best part is, it's progressed in a natural way. But in order to get to that, we need to talk about the jobs she took to help her do it. See, the show is structured somewhat episodically. Typically, Violet will travel to some random place, meet someone who requested a letter, and then help them through whatever's troubling them. That's not to suggest that there aren't any through lines, though. Empathy is the main theme of Violet Evergarden, and every single episode fulfills it beautifully, connecting all of these unrelated stories into a tightly woven narrative. Emotions are frequently hidden from both Violet and the audience until the climax of an episode. This lady hides her love for the man who recently asked her out. Lucalia hides her desire to thank her older brother for surviving the war. Iris hides her scars from being rejected by her childhood friend and her gratefulness towards her parents. Charlotte and Damien hide their excitement for their political marriage and their lack of confidence in themselves. Leon hides his desire to break away from his complacency in life. Oscar hides the pain he feels from losing his daughter at a young age. Violet's co-workers unknowingly hid their affection for her. An's mother hid everything she wanted to to tell her daughter before she died. Aiden was going to die before revealing just how much his parents and girlfriend meant to him. And finally, Violet hid her true feelings about Gilbert from him. This is an extremely diverse set of examples, each one containing a different reason, method, and message, but there is one commonality shared between all of them. Every single one of these hidden emotions were revealed in some form by a letter. They really wanted to make sure that the power these letters hold was not undersold. The show uses them as symbolism for the feelings of the writer, treating each one as a vessel for somebody's raw and unfiltered emotion. It seems strange nowadays, given how trivial sending a message to anybody in the world is, but the emphasis the show puts on the importance of letters envelops the viewer and pulls them into a time where simply being able to communicate with others without speaking was treasured. One of the most powerful quotes from the show is, "No letter deserves to go undelivered." Taking into account the symbolism, this can be reinterpreted as no emotion deserves to be left unarticulated, beautifully tying them into the main theme of empathy. It's actually insane how interconnected all this stuff is. Violet is emotionless and unempathetic, but she must learn to utilize the most important tool for conveying feelings of her time to uncover emotions her clients withhold and deliver them to their intended destination. This sounds like one of those ideas you come up with in your head and then you get super proud of yourself because everything is cohesive and connected, but when you go to actually write your story, you realize that pulling it off effectively is an entirely different beast. I can't even begin to describe how impressive this is. Also, don't forget, Violet's character arc is chugging along the entire time throughout these episodes, and during every job she takes another major step towards becoming more human. While helping this lady, she learns that she's terrible at being empathetic. While helping Lucalia, she manages to transcribe her first emotion. While helping Iris, she's able to listen to her problems and share some of her own. While helping Charlotte, she hears her concerns and takes actions to rectify them. While helping Leon, she learns that she's lonely without Gilbert. While helping Oscar, she's able to empathize with a fictional character. She helps him write his play, and every time he gets a writer's block, she urges him to continue so the main character isn't killed by the evil dragon. Also, by this point, she's built up so much of her character that the dozens of lives she took during the war finally catch up to her. This contrasts beautifully with how others have viewed her throughout the show. The more good she does, the more favorably she's seen. It escalates to the point where after she fulfills the promise Oscar's late daughter made to him, he tells Violet this.
神様なんていないと思っていたけど、いるなら君のことだろうと。
The very next scene, we see Violet alone in a dark cabin room, torturing herself over her sins. The more progress she makes in the present, the more her past tears her back down. In short, the show is able to unite character development, plot, and symbolism under a single theme. I don't think you need me to tell you how cool that is, so let's shift gears for a bit and talk about what this show is actually famous for: being really sad. It gets this reputation for good reason, because these final episodes are not for the faint of heart. You're gonna see the only person the main character ever cared about get shot in the eye.
You're a third-rate duelist with a fourth-rate deck.
You're gonna see a dying mother write letters to her young daughter that will be delivered on her birthday every year for the next 50 years. You're gonna see a defenseless soldier who just wants to return home to his family get hunted and gunned down by an enemy squad. It's messed up, it's clearly intended to make the audience tear up, but as I hope I've shown you all, it's not even close to all the show has going for it. Look, I get it. I really do. Sad stories are not for everyone, and if the sad stuff in Violet Evergarden didn't get a reaction out of you, there's a good chance that you despise the show. Here's the thing though, none of these scenes lack substance, they are all important for the overall story. Remember, empathy is the name of the game, and these explosions of emotion at the end of the show only serve to accelerate Violet's growth as a human. Ironically, it's her tears themselves that clued me in on this. Her jobs in episodes 7, 10, and 11 all feature her tearing up because the people she's helping are going through the loss of a loved one, something she knows all too well. The first time she cries, she apologizes to Oscar for losing her composure. The second time she does it, she manages to hold it in while she's with her clients, but lets loose once she's back among her coworkers. The third time, she attempts to leave hastily because she can feel it coming, but she's stopped by a woman who hugs her, thanking her for bringing her deceased son back to her in the form of a letter. As you can imagine, the dam bursts open from here. It's a super cool mini progression that I'm glad I noticed. And it's one of the many great reasons to examine shows like these for a deeper meaning rather than just dismissing them as sad. Because even if you're not in the mood for tears, I think we can all get behind great character development and well executed themes. So let's wrap everything up in a big purple bow before I let you all go for the day. You see, that's actually like really cool because purple is like the same color as violet, which is just, this is what I choose to do in my free time. So after preventing a train headed to a treaty signing from being blown up, Violet and friends successfully prevent another war from breaking out, coinciding with the resolve Violet gained in the last episode to not let anyone else die if she can prevent it. She doesn't kill anymore, she's learned to put more value in the lives of others. She doesn't take orders anymore, she's learned to be happy living life without them. She doesn't lack empathy anymore, she's learned to understand how others are feeling and can express their emotions perfectly. And finally, she doesn't fail to grasp the concept of love anymore, something she puts on full display when she writes her first and only letter in the show to Gilbert, fulfilling her arc and closing things out on a somber yet hopeful note. Because even though it's still hard for Violet to come to grips with her loss, both her and the audience understand that no matter what, she will keep on living. And there you have it. Kojima was right, my brother is stupid, and this show rocks. I left out 2 movies and an OVA, which I suppose I'll have to cover in more videos down the line. Who knows? Planning is for nerds. Oh, that reminds me, I wanted to show off something that I've been planning for a couple of weeks now. You might be wondering why I have a Patreon set up when I'm still a very small man on a very big internet, and there are 2 reasons. The first is I'd like to one day be able to justify the blood, sweat, and tears I pour into this thing with a little more than just I like doing it. And the second reason is I thought it would be fun to put together. It was, by the way. Thanks for asking. I know you've got to get back to your day, so I'll be brief with the rundown. You might notice that every tier is Dongo themed and that the drawings are not very good. That's because I drew them myself and it took me way longer than I'd care to admit. The tiers are pretty self-explanatory, and honestly, if you're even watching this part of the video right now, you've already done so much more than I could ever ask for. If you give this a look and choose to pledge something, that'd be pretty cool. But no pressure. Your money's your money unless you choose to give it to me, in which case I guess it's my money. Alright, that's all I've got. See you all next time.